Welcome to the Weekly Bakken Get Together here. We have U.S. Senator Hoeven joining us, and we're very excited today because we just got done at the 1 Million Cups celebration, which is taking off in different Bakken communities like Williston and Bismarck. Of course, we have that in Grand Forks as well. And not only are we doing this on Facebook Live, and get this, I just wrote down our social media audience. Bakken.com, we got 60,000 followers. Marcellus, 50,000. Eagleford, 50. The grand total, 250,000 Facebook followers. We have a bigger audience than MSNBC now, let me tell you. iTunes, we're also recording this interview for our 30-plus radio stations as well. And thank you for all you folks on iTunes downloading. Handful of people now downloading us in India, so we're getting that international audience. We had South America last year, so we're very excited about that. 35,000 on Twitter. Just picked up this in the mail because we also do some writing. Latest column, why crude oil to China is good for America. I hear why crude oil to China is good for America in the Oil Man magazine. Of course, the evolution of the Bakken story, we continue in the local Bakken publications as well. We're here today talking about energy, entrepreneurship, quality of life is happening in the Bakken. We're going to get to that in just a second. But energy, update from Washington. What's going on with the great Bakken shale play right now?
You know, working on a number of things, but primarily working to empower our amazing energy industry. So whether it's that good business climate, legal, tax, and regulatory climate, reduce the regulatory burden, improve the tax code, really empower that investment and help drive the growth of energy production in this country. Of course, Bakken leading the way, but then also making it easier to build the infrastructure we need, right? Not only the pipelines, but making sure that we have the roads, the rail, the bridges, and all the other things that go with energy development.
And we're going to kind of set the table a little bit because we're going to tell a story in this actual interview. This is something that Senator Hoeven, then Governor Hoeven, and I have been covering for a long time. He mentioned the UAS industry in 2005 is when he started it. I started covering it in 2007 when you guys were sending Tommy Kenville over to Israel to find out their thing. So I did want to ask you about Governor Burgum's comments at the last petroleum annual meeting. There was some deer in headlights, but then there were some people nodding their head because he made some outlandish comments. You ready for this? He had a goal and a quest for the oil industry. 2 million barrels a day.
Sure.
Zero spills. Coal collaboration, and then some natural gas examples too. And a lot of people thought 2 million barrels a day, what are you crazy? Zero spills? But if you understand the oil and gas industry, the technology, the infrastructure increases, he's not that far off, is he?
No, I think those are exciting ideas, and you have to have a vision and high goals. Look, when I started as governor in 2000, we produced less than 100,000 barrels a day. Now we produce over 1 million barrels a day. Okay, that's an increase of more than tenfold. He's just talking about doubling, so why not, right? But seriously, we have such an innovative, creative industry here in North Dakota, in the Bakken, that I believe it's absolutely doable because the technology gets better and our ability to recover production, as we go from 2% to 4%, it makes such a difference, both with existing production and as we develop new production.
And let's talk about those percentages, because that's the next part of this whole thing, which leads us into entrepreneurship, which is, when we first started this Bakken thing, we were at about 7% technology, give or take a little bit, and we were doing very well with the drilling, and they've identified where all the different parts are. Well, now we're at like 8, 9, 10%. I just talked to Justin Kringstead last week, Lynn Helms, and there's a thing happening called refracking. It's been going on for a little while, but it's hitting more and more in the news. The reason the Bakken's going to be a 5-generation play is because not only do we have new holes to punch, but the refracking is going. If we're just at that 8 to 10% of technology understanding of the Bakken, imagine what 15 is going to be. Imagine what. That's really what's happening here, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's the new technology which is not only driving more production out of the same resource, but it's also doing it more cost effectively and more efficiently, which makes us more competitive globally. So when you do all those things, we can drill more wells and do a better job of fracking and doing it at lower cost. And then as we build the infrastructure, get it to market more cost effectively and more safely. All those things make us more competitive in the global market. That attracts more investment into our energy play.
U.S. Senator John Hoeven, if you're in the Marcellus or Eagleford Facebook page wondering why we're talking about the Bakken, is because the Bakken is setting the standard for many of the other shale plays across the country. U.S. Senator John Hoeven is our guest. We're talking next about the quality of life that is happening in the Bakken right now. Last week in our weekly Bakken Get Together, we had on housing as the topic, and what we found out was that the housing costs have all but gone down 50 to 75% from what they were before. They're comparable with Fargo, North Dakota. $1,000 to $1,500 for a single family home and an apartment to rent out there, and their wages didn't go down. So their housing is down to 8-10%, where the national average is 20-25%. Watford City doesn't have a furniture store. The opportunity is now for quality of life, is what I'm saying. You've been touting quality of life for 2-3 years. Talk to me about the evolution of the quality of life out there.
Well, that's very important, because as the resource play grew, say 2006 up to 2010, that time frame, we grew so fast we had to have people come in, and we didn't have the infrastructure that you're talking about. And of course, that drove up costs as well, whether it's housing, food, fuel, all the things that you have to have. Now we've really caught up in that regard, and that's what you're describing. That means better quality of life, more amenities, more access to all these services, and housing and everything else at an affordable price. And that's important to understand, so people can come up here for these great opportunities and bring their family.
You got to take care of your foundation, which is your house first. And if you've got extra discretionary, the reason I brought up the furniture store, that's just one example of things that are available right now in the Bakken. And what's happening is the Bakken creates little micro booms, I call them.
I know a guy that started with a food truck out there back in the day.
Can you believe a food truck ends up with...
And then he became a media mogul.
Got half, quarter million followers and 30 public... Yeah,
But see, that's how it starts with entrepreneurship. You never know. That's a great example.
It really is, and cups are all about it. You heard so many success stories, and when you talk about technology, we're talking big data. We're talking UAS industry. Mm-hmm. I wrote down your anchors because that was great. Wapaton, North Dakota, they've got some UAS activity going on down there, which is an anchor of the industry. Grand Forks, same thing. And then almost like a little hammock, because you got all this NDSU analytics being developed and all these little startups here, because Fargo really is the hub. Oh, yeah. At the end of the day. Talk to me about the UAS technology.
Well, that's what you heard. We talked about tech entrepreneurship today. You probably heard from 30 different entrepreneurs who are doing great things. Matter of fact, you need to come sometime and tell your story at 1 million cups. This is the largest 1 million cups in the country, which means young entrepreneurs doing great, innovative, amazing things. And so that's what we're talking about, is really driving that tech entrepreneurship, combining that with being an absolute leader in the country in unmanned aviation. When you look at the Odegaard School of Aviation, the university, and all the things we've done with our Northern Plains test site, we can do things here that no one else can do. For example, one of the things I'll talk about this afternoon at Drone Focus is that we work to get funding for what's called a DASR 11 radar, which is installed at the Grand Sky Technology Park, so that we can fly unmanned aircraft beyond line of sight without a chase plane. You can't do that other places. And now we're installing the DASR 11 radar here at Hector Field. Okay. So we now have a radius of more than 70 miles where we can fly these unmanned aircraft without chase planes, giving all of these tech entrepreneurs an opportunity to now interface with what we're doing in unmanned aviation led out of the Grand Sky Technology Park, one-of-a-kind technology park on the Grand Forks Air Force Base. Like you say, we have a manufacturer in Wapaton that's actually building aircraft. So, this is how it all comes together in terms of really driving technology, which I call the third wave of development for North Dakota.
And again, if you're wondering, in the Eagleford, the Permian, Marcellus, why we're talking so heavily about the Bakken, well, this is the Weekly Bakken Get Together, but also because North Dakota is one of 7 test states for UAS. So we're writing the code right now for the country on energy security, border security, precision agriculture. U.S. Senator John Hoeven, we just got 2 questions left with him. The entrepreneurship going on here, we've got this tech wave and everything like that, but we also have rewriting of business plans happening. When I hear John Gibson of One Oak tell me they're rewriting their business plan, I hear Harold Ham telling me, these people are personally telling me they're rewriting their business plan because technology has been that much of a disruptor. Yet helper in the end, you know. I look at somebody like Eric Hatch, who went from a mid-level realtor at Keller Williams to the top real estate company in North Dakota, 67th on the Inc. whatever the heck is, and all he did was just reinvent the real estate industry, found the secrets in people, the talents in people, and really shined on that. Are you seeing that in other industries, the rewriting? I'm seeing in energy, I'm seeing in real estate. Talk to me about this whole thing that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, you heard from companies here, new companies like Flight Pros that are using unmanned technology, not only in agriculture, but tie it to energy, like we're talking about, going out and inspecting transmission lines and doing other work in the energy patch that is really changing the way that we produce energy and really enhancing the safety and the environmental security. Back to what you're talking about with Doug Burgum saying, hey, we're going to not only go to 2 million barrels a day, get down to like zero spills. Mm-hmm. These are the new technologies that make that possible.
I'm thinking next week we're going to have somebody on about the brains of all of this, because so much is being done. Final question here with U.S. Senator John Hoeven. Appreciate his time today here at the Million Cups. And it's kind of a reunion in Fargo, North Dakota. And, of course, there's other cups across the Bakken. And so we invite you to go out there and attend those. Succession planning. Okay, last week, Gate City Bank President Steve Swantek, who's very well known in the Upper Midwest and the nation, he announced his his retirement in 2020, which is not news. He announced it in 2015, I think, when he took the board spot. But he talked about the importance of succession planning. If you go to any oil and gas conference, any oil and gas event, the theme with anybody over the age of 60 is, who's going to replace us? They're very concerned about passing the torch, the succession planning, to, I call it, have a respect for industry, to really have a good respect for responsible environmentalism, responsible capitalism. So they're kind of going through a vetting process right now. Are you seeing this nationwide?
Yeah, I really am, and because there's so much that goes into it. But for example, the average age for a farmer now is about 60 years old. Mm-hmm. And look at the capital investment. Look at the technology they're using in agriculture now, GPS and satellite imagery and all these kinds of things. So whether it's energy, whether it's ag, whether it's tech, whether it's banking, Steve Swantek, just a great individual. Everybody has to look, because of, you really need to groom and build a pathway to bring in, the next generation. So it is something we have to be working on and thinking about all the time. And as a matter of fact, right now we're working on this tax relief package. Mm-hmm. One of the key features is making sure that when it comes to passing along that small business or farm or ranch or whatever it is, that you don't have a problem with death taxes that prevent you from being able to do that. So it's a huge issue right now, and we have to really focus on it and work at making it happen.
Senator Hoeven, thank you very much.
Great to be with you.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.